Good evening, everyone. Before the council meeting tonight, we'll be doing committee interviews for some openings on our Economic Development Committee. And before we start, we just met on one closed session item, and there's nothing to report out at this time. All right, so let's start with our first applicant, Monique Molina.
Monique, can you go ahead and unmute yourself? Perfect. And you'll probably just see the council as a whole. I'll turn my video on so at least you can see me. All right, and I'm going to turn it back to the mayor to start with the questions.
Please start, Monique, with sharing with us what interested you in serving on the city's Economic Development Committee.
Sure. I graduated from Humboldt State with a bachelor's in business, new venture management, just basically studying entrepreneurship and venture startups. And I got interested in the Economic Development Committee because it addresses the nature of businesses and just the understanding the demographics as a whole. And as Arcata and Humboldt changes, I wanted to see how businesses would be impacted with the influx of people. And I wanted to also just learn more about finding out where businesses are at and where they're trying to go to keep up with the rapid change of things. So,
thank you. Do we have any other questions from the council?
Sure. Hey, Monique. So I have been a member of the EDC for 3 years, and one of the things that comes up a lot is turnover. Can you commit to serve out your full term if you're appointed?
that's my intention. From what I understand, it's Tuesdays, Thursdays at 5:30.
It's it's the first Tuesday of the month. It's just one meeting a month. So not only that time period, but are you able to commit to fulfill to the end of your term, which would either be 2022 or 23?
Yes.
Go ahead. Any other questions?
Okay, and then another question. So are you familiar with any of the current projects or programs that the city is working on? If so, which one are you the most excited about?
I've heard about a lot of housing projects, and from what I've seen, there's some projects going on in the center of the plaza with the where the old statue was, and some nature trails being developed. When it comes to picking one that I'm most excited about, I just think in general, I'm excited for change and just to see the progress of it. And I'd like to learn more about the changes in the community that are happening right now.
Hey, so can you tell me about some experience that you have working in a group with a bunch of volunteers and coming to consensus and what that looks like for you?
I am a member of the Rotary Club, Arcata Rotary Club, and we work in groups. For example, if we do the backpack drive, we have to figure out, where we're going to meet, who's going to take on the role of packing the backpacks and then delivering them and where to. And sometimes at last minute, somebody might not be able to, there might be a conflict in schedule. And so you just have to really communicate. And that's the same for, I coach the Mad River youth soccer team, boys U9 and 10 currently. And so working with the group of parents, there's 10 boys, and just getting people to coordinate to do concession stands to help with the games on the weekends. I would just say communication is key and being consistent and honest.
Thank you so much. What is one major initiative that the city could implement that would improve economic conditions?
You know, there could be multiple things, but I would just say job security, but more so that kind of goes hand in hand with childcare and resources and capital and other things to make that happen for folks. I think that's the one I'm most passionate about.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Monique. These interviews are pretty short. Later on in the meeting, we will be voting on and announcing the new committee members. So really appreciate you making the time for this interview. Thank you. All right, and our next interviewee is Humnat Panta. And I'd like to start with what has interested you in serving on this committee.
Can you hear us? Perfect.
Yeah, I can hear. Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much again for this opportunity for the interview. Well, I think, I can contribute to the, city council being in this committee. I'm finance expert, I'm economics expert, I know economic analysis. I have worked for the government. So I think my qualification and my expertise can really help this committee to support the city council. That was the reason I'm interested to serve in this committee.
Thank you. Do we have other questions from the council?
Well, no, I don't. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I was asking the council. Does anyone else on the council have a question?
Sure, I'll jump in. So can you commit to the time of these meetings, which is the first Tuesday of every month from 5 to 7? And also, can you commit to serving the full term of your appointment?
Absolutely. I will be available to serve on to attend the meetings as well as other activities, and that I'll be able to work for the full term.
Ask the same question. What is one major initiative that the city could implement that would improve economic conditions?
Well, that's a very interesting question. So in my opinion, first of all, we need to have a plan to increase the users in the city, in the county. So I think Humboldt County can have initiative, programs and plans to bring more people to revive this community. So we're going to have more business opportunities. These businesses going to be having job openings so that it can really help the community and the city with the growth. So I think growth is the key factor that can really help the community to grow and which can have dramatic impact on our economic development.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other questions from the council?
Yeah, so are you familiar with any of the current economic projects or programs that the city is working on? And if so, which ones are you most excited about?
I think I'm very excited about this infill development initiative. I was reading on the the report of 2020. So yeah, so that was one of the very interesting initiative and project for me.
Great, thank you. Yeah, again, these are pretty short interviews. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here this evening, and later on in the meeting, we will vote on our selection. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have any members of the public that would like to comment on these interviews? All right. We will take a short 5-minute break until 6 o'clock, which we will return with the regular council meeting. Good evening, and thank you for viewing the September 1st regular meeting of the Arcata City Council. The City Council meeting is being held as a teleconference in response to local efforts to reduce the current surge of the Delta variant of the COVID-19 virus. With new cases averaging over 100 per day for several weeks, the city urges residents to get vaccinated as our best defense against the virus and the personal and economic impacts it has on our town. I want to welcome back our Humboldt State students and thank them for being leaders in vaccinating for our collective health. We wish you well on your studies, look forward to getting to know you, and encourage you to participate in discussions here with the city. If you wish to make public comment during the meeting, either the two open public comment periods or for an individual agenda item, there are two ways to do so. If you're logged onto the Zoom meeting webinar, click on raise your hand on the right-hand side of your screen. When it's time for public comment on the item you wish to speak on, the clerk will unmute you. You will have 2 minutes to comment. You can also access the meeting by phone, call the number at the bottom of the screen, enter the meeting ID also at the bottom of the screen. Press *9 on your phone. This will raise your hand. When it is time for public comment on the item on which you wish to speak, the clerk will unmute your phone. You will hear a prompt that will indicate your phone is unmuted. You will have 2 minutes to comment. And if you care to do so, please join me in the flag salute. You have a flag right here. May we please have a roll call?
Mayor Watson.
Here.
Vice Mayor Atkins Salazar.
Here.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Here.
Councilmember Goldstein.
Here.
Councilmember Matthews.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. Next, we will move on to ceremonial matters. First, we have a proclamation recognizing September 5th through 11, 2021 as Suicide Prevention Week, to be read by myself. Recognizing September 5th through 11, 2021 as Suicide Prevention Week. Whereas suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States and the second leading cause of death among people younger than 44 years old. And whereas in the US, someone attempts to take their life every 23 seconds, a total of over 1.3 million suicide attempts each year. Someone dies by suicide every 10.9 minutes, resulting in nearly 48,000 suicide deaths each year. Whereas suicide is the only leading cause of death in the U.S. that has increased every year for the past decade. In California, 2019, 4,436 people died by suicide. And whereas over 90% of people who died by suicide have a diagnosis and treatable mental health condition that is often not recognized or treated. The stigma associated with mental health conditions and suicidality works against suicide prevention by discouraging at-risk persons from seeking life-saving help and further traumatizes survivors of suicide loss. And whereas organizations such as the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention envision a world without suicide and are dedicated to saving lives and bringing hope to those affected by suicide through research, education, advocacy, and resources for those who have lost a loved one or who are struggling. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the City Council of the City of Arcata that September 5th through 11th, 2021 is Suicide Prevention Week in Arcata, and all residents are encouraged to learn more and get involved by visiting afsp.org. Signed today, September 1st, 2021 by myself, Mayor Brett Watson. Next, we have a proclamation. One moment.
Cleanup.
Yeah, next we have a proclamation for coastal cleanup to be read by Councilmember Atkins Salazar.
This is in recognition of Coastal Cleanup Month for September 2021. Whereas the state of California has a varied coastline of sandy beaches, rocky shores, productive estuaries, marshes, tidal flats, urban areas, and harbors. And whereas the marine environment is one of the most valuable resources for recreation, tourism, fishing, and other coastal activities, coastal protection is a responsibility shared by residents, the business community, and public institutions. And whereas the North Coast Environment Environmental Center is the Humboldt County organizer for the 2021 Coastal Cleanup Month, taking place every Saturday in September, during which an anticipated 1,000 people will clean beaches, rivers, and estuaries along the entire Humboldt coastline. And whereas the North Coast Environmental Center's Beach Beautification Program, now Adopt a Beach, began in Humboldt County over 40 years ago and is now celebrated throughout California and around the world. Last year, Humboldt County volunteers picked up over 7,000 pieces of trash from our shoreline and coast. And whereas residents can be proud that year after year, Humboldt County continues to be among the state's leaders in the number of volunteers who help keep our ocean, rivers, and coastline clean. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Arcata recognizes the month of September as Coastal Cleanup Month and encourages individuals, businesses, service groups, and public institutions to safely hit the beach to jointly promote a healthy and productive coastal environment. Dated September 1st, 2021, and signed by Mayor Watson.
Thank you. Next, we have a proclamation in recognition of Queer Community Recognition Month, to be read by Councilmember Goldstein.
Whereas there are many communities that are marginalized, isolated, or underrepresented, despite one of our nation's greatest strengths being our rich diversity of people, cultures, and histories, it is extremely important for people to support each other, especially in this pandemic situation, and the queer community can serve as an example of this. Regardless of orientation, gender, or other preferences, we share similar experiences, including many of us from other marginalized groups as well. And whereas recent sociological and pandemic events, as well as historical events in our own community, emphasize how we are all affected by violations against those belonging to nearly all marginalized groups, such events also bring to light the urgent need for awareness, recognition, and education of the forms of prejudice, racism, and discrimination we all fundamentally share. This can be done in a manner that fosters awareness and creates a safe and welcoming and inclusive community for people from all walks of life. And whereas the City of Arcata honors the value of the queer community, as well as their contributions with growing recognition and appreciation that their challenges and struggles for full equality are akin to and part of those shared with other marginalized groups, and whereas Redwood Pride would love to be able to invite everyone from Humboldt County, as well as the surrounding areas, to celebrate our diversity with Redwood Pride Community Festival, parade, and evening events. However, in light of the current pandemic situation, Pride events remain unscheduled at this time and will be announced when it is safe to resume gatherings in the community. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Arcata recognizes September 2021 as Queer Community Recognition Month in the City of Arcata, dated September 1st, 2021, and signed by Mayor Brett Watson.
Thank you. Next, we have annual report from the Public Safety Committee.
Melissa, are you going to start? You can go ahead and unmute yourself. And we have Vice Chair Fred Johansson as well here. So I'm not sure which order. Perfect.
Hi. It took me a minute to find my mute and my video. So hi guys, thank you so much for having us here tonight. I wanted to start by saying the Public Safety Committee brings these recommendations to you with great pride. The committee worked tirelessly through COVID restrictions as well as changes in the makeup of our committee membership. We considered each available option for budget considerations and civilian oversight models in order to bring much needed resources and transparency to APD and our community as a whole. In the end, the committee completed each of the reform goals set forward by the council in early 2020. These include review use of force policy, review police reform initiatives, community police oversight commissions, as well as research and recommendation for alternative staffing positions at APD. I will speak to the Civilian Oversight Board. We recommend that the City of Arcata establish a civilian oversight board based on a review-focused model. This model was chosen due to the ease and flexibility of implementation. It tends to be the least cost and resource intensive form of oversight, which is suited well for a small community such as Arcata. We also want to recognize and respect that internal investigations are conducted by professionals and specialists. We feel that review of these investigations with the proper training would build transparency, respect, and community trust in our police department. Civilian oversight will only be successful if the Civilian Oversight Board is given the appropriate level of independence, authority, and training. With that in mind, one of the things that we are recommending, we have multiple choices here in our recommendation as for the makeup of the Civilian Oversight Board. One of the things that the council should keep in mind is training retention, availability of potential board members, as well as community representation, which will be of the utmost importance. The three options are: one, the Civilian Oversight Board could consist of 3 public safety committee members and 2 to 4 additional community members to be appointed by the chair of the Public Safety Committee, the mayor, and the city manager. The second option is that the Civilian Oversight Board could be a 3-person team. Members could consist of City of Arcata residents or those who work or live in Arcata, and could include members of the Public Safety Committee. All review team members would be appointed by the council. And the third option is the Civilian Oversight Board could consist of 3 Public Safety Committee members to be rotated as needed throughout their term. Something that we saw as important was training. These board members should be required to complete training that will familiarize them with laws and procedures surrounding this oversight. The committee suggests the following requirements. Annual attendance at the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement. That is a mouthful. This year event is available virtually with the option of a full conference for $350 per attendant or $20 per attendant per webinar, which there are 32 available this year. As well as internal training within APD. This would include review of APD policies and up to 14 hours ride along with officers. Any questions thus far?
Melissa, I was wondering, of the 3 possibilities for makeups of the Civilian Oversight Board, did the Safety Committee have a preference, a top one?
Honestly, they all had their pros and cons. One of the things that we had talked about was appointment of the board members. I personally liked the idea of the chair of the public safety, the mayor, and the city staff, because that gives us a community member, an elected official, and a city staff member. I also like the idea of training retention. I think it's going to be important, which was one of the reasons why we suggested in each of these that you could have a public safety committee member, because we do have term limits and we are committed to those. So, and there's also the staggering, which would mean that we could have more retention of that training and less having to redo it. And I think any combination of these 3 would work as well.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thanks. With that, I would like to introduce Fred Johansson. He is the lead member of our budget subcommittee, and that subcommittee was responsible for recommending the alternative staffing solutions for Arcata. You're muted, Fred. Fred, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Anyway, we had 4 recommendations to make, and The first one is to extend the MISS program and secure finances for that position long term. The second, continue to support CIT meetings, which are aimed at taking care of the problem members in our community that are homeless. 2 or 3, hire an additional sworn officer with social work and mental health training or experience. And this might also be 2 people, because then it would help reinitiate, number 4, the community response team, which takes care of the problem areas that the homeless have. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Fred. Do we have any members of the public that would like to comment on this agenda item?
Could I make some additional comments real quick?
Of course.
Also part of the recommendations was Arcata Police Department annual training. We would like to have a yearly training report to the Public Safety Committee, just so that we can get presented on what they're training on and discuss the annual scheduled meeting with. So an annual training report from APD to the Public Safety Committee. And we'd also like to share that training report with the public, because we find often that our police department are doing really cutting edge great things, but people don't know about it. And also there was talk of additional supportive services and the consideration of establishing discretionary funds for officers. This would assist them in providing crisis, emergency sheltering if needed, transportation and/or food. This form of support would be most effective if tied up with follow-up services. Also, just increase support for and collaboration with our local service agencies.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment? All right. Any other comments, questions from the council?
Thank you so much for presenting this. I read through all of it. It was really well thought out and presentative. I really appreciate all your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. With that, we will move on to early oral communications. This 15-minute time period is provided for people to address the council on matters not on the agenda. At the conclusion of all oral communications, the council may respond to statements. Any request that requires council action will be set by the council for a future agenda or referred to staff. Speakers addressing the council at this time may be limited to 2 minutes. All other oral and written communications will be heard at this meeting under agenda item 11. And again, this is for items that are not on tonight's agenda. Do we have any members of the public that would like to comment?
Checking one last moment if there is any members of the public that would like to comment on items not on tonight's agenda. Seeing no public comment on this item.
Thank you. Next, we have our consent calendar. All matters in the consent calendar are considered to be routine by the City Council and enacted in one motion. There's no separate discussion of any of these items. If discussion is required, that item is removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. At the end of reading the consent calendar, council members or members of the public can request that an item be removed for separate discussion. A, approve the minutes of the City Council meeting of August 18th, 2021. B, biweekly report on general warrants. C, adopt ordinance number 1547, an ordinance to the City Council, the City of Arcata, amending the Chapman House Historic Landmark Ordinance, waive reading of the text to consent to read by title only. D, award a construction contract for the 2021 Arcata Asphalt Grind Out and Inlay Project to California Highway Construction Group, Inc. in the amount of $389,360.35. Authorize the city engineer to increase the contract amount up to $77,872.07, 20% for a total not to exceed $467,232.42, to allow for any unforeseen contingencies and additional paving work as necessary, and authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents. E, approve the purchase of 2 2022 Ford Maverick hybrid pickup trucks for engineering and parks, and award contract to Harper Motors in the amount of $442.46, including tax, allocate an additional $6,442.46 from 771 Central Garage Fund to cover purchase costs, and authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents. Do we have any members of the council that would like to pull an item off the consent calendar?
I'd like to pull item C, please.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the rest of the consent calendar, minus item C?
I move that we approve the consent calendar minus item C.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Motion carries. And we will now discuss item C. Go ahead, Stacy.
Okay, I just, we'd received a little bit more correspondence regarding this item. We had a letter and some emails and phone calls, and so I'm just curious to see if there's anyone that's willing to or would like to entertain the discussion again on this. I think the thing really to be discussed would be the 10-year limitation that we put on the ordinance. So I just wanted to know if, just wanted to have that discussion if anyone is willing. Okay, so that's a short discussion. All right, thank you.
Do we have any public comment on this item?
Yes, we do, Mayor. So our first speaker that we have is screening Joel, and then next we'll have Scott. And Joel, you will have 2 minutes. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is actually Joel's wife, Shannon. I am an HSU grad, and Joel and I are in contract to purchase Chapman House. I'm concerned about the 10-year limitation. The property is a historic resource and will require maintenance and repair beyond 10 years. And so my concern is that at the end of that 10 years, what happens to the ability to maintain and repair the property without the flexibility to possibly do short-term rentals? I feel that it seems to me that the incentives should follow the property, not the people, that it's not about the Hunts or us or maximizing their profit, which of course wouldn't be our concern. And you know, this is not going to be like a huge money-making venture. We haven't modeled a single scenario where it's a profitable scenario. It's important. The house is important. The property is important. Historic resources are important. They're, you know, different than housing and a different element of the general plan, but an important element. I worry that if the city doesn't follow through on its agreements, that people will stop having faith in the city and the things that it says that it will do and then doesn't do. And lastly, I think that the guiding principles and goals of the general plan and the historic element talk about encouraging owners to seek historic landmark status and invest in restoration, to promote interest and appreciation in historic buildings and encourage tourism and economic development through historic resource preservation. The city should make decisions that are consistent with the general plan, and I don't think the limitation of 10 years is consistent. I think it hampers the property. Thanks.
Thank you, Shannon. Next, we have Scott. Scott, go ahead, please.
Good evening. Thank you for agreeing to listen to a little bit more on this evening. To add a little bit more to what Shannon had said, I did think that it was interesting that the 10-year term was put on it, and under the pretense that 10 years should be sufficient for the Hunts to recover their investment. And I think it's interesting that that term was used when nobody ever asked us how much we spent or what the cash flow was. And just being a finance guy, those are two pieces of information that I think are critically important to arriving at any kind of a term on this. I would also state that I find it a little bit surprising that there's not going to be any discussion whatsoever on the comments made by the Historic Landmarks Committee. I think that these volunteers have put their heart and soul into this committee and also into this letter. And I frankly am surprised that there's no dialogue on it whatsoever. I also think that what Bob Felter wrote, also given his preservation background, while it seemingly is ignored in this particular context. Thank you again for past hearing of all of this. I do appreciate all of your time. I don't agree with the path that you've taken, but I think that you already know that. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. We're checking one last time if there is any other, yes, we have, must be Sandy.
Yes. Hi, this is Sandy at a different location than Scott.
Go ahead, please.
I guess I'm just really curious why this is coming down to the council hanging on so much to the idea that there has to be one permanent housing unit. When I look at the whole process of what's gone on, I just find it interesting the council is not taking the advice of the Historic Landmark Committee, is not taking the advice of the Planning Commission, and not taking advice of the staff recommendation. And granted, they can vote however they want, but with all these recommendations and I just can't understand why they maybe can't articulate and discuss why they're willing to discard all those recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. One last check if there are any other attendees that would like to comment on this item. Seeing no more public comment on this item.
Thank you. Do we have any more comments or questions from the council? Just a couple comments for myself. My understanding with the 10-year limitation, it wasn't at all related to the ability to recoup an investment on it. It was I felt like it was a compromise. We had some on the council that wanted to do it and some that didn't, and it seemed like a good middle ground. And I believe what I said was, it seemed like some of the concern was that the new owner would have the option to operate it as all units as Airbnbs, but there was also, comments that they also intended to live there full time, and so I felt like it was a 10-year window for potential new owners to determine, whether or not that they wanted to sell it with the Airbnb abilities to it, or if they wanted to stay there. So that was my feelings on that. And I absolutely appreciate all the work all of our committees and our commission does, and they're there to, they serve at the council's pleasure, frankly, and we're not always going to, accept all the recommendations, but it doesn't mean we don't appreciate all the hard work they put in.
And I just wanted to add one more thing too. Yes, we heard from our various committees and everything, but also, thinking about all of the work that our city staff and everybody put into the Airbnb ordinance and all of the work that we have did earlier this year working on that is, also something that should be taken into account. And maybe we didn't get comment from the folks that helped us craft that ordinance and how this affects that, but, we see those effects, and to respect the work that we all did on an ordinance that we all really support, to see that taken away through this also, I think is, important to recognize as well. So, and, I agree with everything that Mayor Watson said.
All right, unless we have any other comments or questions, will we please have a motion for item C?
I move that we approve item C from the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Because of the 10-year limitation, I'm going to vote no.
All right, motion carries. Next, we have old business. Discuss and provide direction for uses of the city's allocation of American Rescue Plan Act. I think after talking with the city manager about how to best move forward with this and try to keep it efficient and kind of organized, maybe a good way to go about it is we each kind of come up with our top 5, and we can kind of cross-reference which ones, we have in common with each other. So I got a feeling, would we all like to take just a couple minutes to go through and select our top 5? Yeah. So we will go ahead and we're going to take a 5 to 10 minute break while we choose our top 5. All right, welcome back. We've all selected our top 5, and why don't we go ahead and start with Councilmember Matthews.
Hi, I just would like to say that I think all of us on the council appreciate how important this decision is. It's a lot of money, and there's a lot of things that need to be addressed. I would like to urge, knowing that we have really aggressive and ambitious climate goals that we need to reach by 2030, I would like to suggest, before we consider anything else, that we save $1.5 million set aside for future climate change goals to address. Going from there, the other things that I support are Valley West neighborhood support. That would be number 1 for people that are following along. I also support number 6, the mobile intervention service teams, the MIST. The safe parking program, number 8. The number 15, City Hall heating and ventilation. And number 4. 1, 2, 3. And I think that's it. Did I get it? 1, 2, safe. Yep. Those are my top 5. Thank you.
You know, kind of to Councilmember Schaefer's comments, I mean, I feel like 21 through 23, I'd be comfortable just grouping those into one item. I don't know if there's any other interest in that, just to kind of simplify it. Yeah.
Do you think that the number 15 should be lumped into there, the City Hall heating and ventilation, converting to all electric? Because those are the 4, I had started all 4 of those are the climate things.
Yeah.
Number 24. I mean, it's not.
That's a climate change thing too.
Yeah.
But also, I just have a question that's clarifying, if I can, sorry, jump in on whoever's turn it was, but wouldn't, if I don't know, I'm just seeing that like converting the city hall to electric heating would be part of implementing the all-electric initiative, wouldn't it? Kind of.
It definitely could be counted in that because it's an existing project that we've completed phase 1, and this would be phase 2 of. It's just already called out in our CIP and you know, kind of came in initially. I mean, the other piece is that if you wanted to do a set aside for, you know, climate change projects, you could set that dollar tonight, and staff could come back with a list of projects that they think would best meet those goals. But the idea here is to give you some ideas of what those could look like, and if there's something that you're really interested in, you know, to be able to give some guidance, and we could come back with what we think could be some projects associated with that in more detail. Because lots of projects keep rolling in on that topic in particular.
All right. So what are we going to do with the climate change stuff? Let's go ahead and determine that before we move on.
Well, she said we could just make it like if we know that climate change is one.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Then they can lump it.
Okay. So we're just going to take those off the list then?
Or we could just call it like vote for climate change in our 5 votes. Like, well, can I tell you like how I did it? And see?
Yeah, go for it.
So one of my choices.
Turn your microphone on.
Sorry. One of my choices was I put number 5 as a combo. So just going to what, you know, what Karen was saying, since we don't know the details of everything, if maybe we, you know, agree on like a kind of a chunk of money, you know, looking at what we have on here and allocate a, you know, a set amount, you know, an idea, and then staff could go through it and present us with some ideas. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, you know, I mean, I would say to me, the thing that makes the most sense to set aside in the beginning is item number 26, which is $1 million, you know, just to be prudent and to be fiscally smart. To me, that would be my preference of where we started, and subtract that from the 4.4 million, and then that's what we have left is, you know, 3.4, I guess. So Yeah, and I don't even know how to come up with a number. You know, there's so many projects on here. It would be really hard for me to feel comfortable setting aside $1.5 million for climate change stuff because, I mean, there's a lot of other stuff we're not going to be able to do. So I think it's important, and I think we can do some of those things tonight. But that number, I feel like it's a little bit too high. So yeah.
So for me, my first choice I put was the Mobile Intervention Services Team, the MIST items for $1.2 million. It also comes with a crime prevention specialist, a non-sworn police officer, I believe, which would be great for some of the other programs we have. Then a safe parking program. I think we desperately need that. And I went for the higher numbers. 4, a low barrier shelter. And then 5 was a climate change package of some sort. And then I do agree with setting aside $1 million just to see whatever we choose, how it's going. And then if everything's right on track, then maybe we can look at what is left on the list, our other choices that didn't get picked, and start implementing those.
I only counted 4 of yours. Did you have 5?
Oh, I left out a super important one. Thank you. Refund staff positions. So that $548,000, I think that we do have so many goals and things that we want to do and a lot of work to be done, and that burden is falling on a very small staff. So with more people means more things that we can get done. So I really support that one as well.
All right. You want to go next, Councilmember Goldstein?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I didn't pick 5. I picked 8, but
okay.
We all know I'm no. Sorry, Vice Mayor. Yeah, I feel like so many of these can be lumped together, and I mean, we were talking about the kind of like lumping together the like climate change related goals, which I think is a great idea, and I also think we kind of have a lot of housing and homelessness goals that can be kind of mushed together in there. So I have number 1, the Valley West neighborhood support. I'll just add a 9th one to my list. I am good with the idea of refunding frozen positions. I do think that that's important. But I would just put a caveat that we do have 2 sworn officer positions listed in that section, and that's not something I'm comfortable with funding at this time. I think we have other services that are more needed right now that are not sworn positions. So then I did put number 6, funding MIST. I absolutely think we need a safe parking program right now. I think we're at a point where we just need to do something, and this is not a long-term solution, but it is something we could do fairly quickly regarding houselessness. And then same, I put 9 and 10 kind of, I feel like, go together a bit for low barrier shelter and then supporting Arcata House Partnership. And then 13, I feel like kind of goes in that too. The water line extension along Boyd Road, I think would help out with some of Arcata House Partnership's projects, if I understand correctly. And then, and then I just have like the climate change lumped together, and I also agree on holding the $1 million for additional review. Sorry, that was a lot.
That's fine. Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes. Okay. Actually, if I counted correctly, I think mine are all the same as Stacy's here. But yeah, so my top priority, and I think the one that is the most important, is funding MIST. I think that is going to help a lot of our goals and improve safety and homelessness in our community. Also, we just got our report from the Public Safety Committee, and that is literally something they recommended that we do. So I think to grow that program and sustain it for a while is going to be really essential. So that's my top one. And then number 2, I said, low barrier shelter. I guess my number 2 is number 9. Sorry. And then the safe parking program. I think those 3 things can really do a lot to improve just so much in our community here. And then I guess I initially said that the all-electric initiative was going to be my number 4, but I also just support kind of lumping some of those monies just generally for climate change projects. So on this list, number 21, 22, 23, and 15. And then I'm kind of in like a tie here between, I mean, obviously I want to support refunding staff positions, and then also the economic recovery item in the beautification and G&H corridor. And I think the dollar amount that we're looking on this one is fairly low in comparison to some of these other projects. So I would throw that one in there also.
All right.
Yeah.
For me, I have number 6, missed. I think we should consider, so we, these are just suggested dollar amounts that we spend on each category. So, I think maybe we look at a shorter, not going for as long or as many years. So we're not spending 1.2 million on it, but a smaller amount on it without, reducing its effectiveness or anything. I think, how long is this for again?
The MIST would be building the program. So right now we have 32 hours a week. So the idea would be to at least work to double that over the course of time and to fund 3 additional years, plus 3 years of a crime prevention specialist. So yes, we could pull, I think, at about $100,000 a year gets you about 40 hours a week of MIST. We're at 32 right now. I mean, just kind of one round number to give you you get about 40 hours a week for about 100,000.
So for a year?
Yeah, per year.
So for 3 years, it'd be $300,000?
For 40 hours a week.
Got it.
Yeah.
And right now we're doing 32?
Right.
Okay. So it'd also be an increase in service?
Which is 4 days a week, basically 8 hours a day. So we have 3 days where we have no coverage, and then obviously several hours in each day that we have no coverage.
Can I add in? That's actually something I thought of earlier when I was looking over it, as maybe to decrease the number of years, just because that it is a priority, so hopefully we would continue to find funding, but it would allow us to do some other things, maybe even if we just took a year off of it and we're doing 3 years. So I support that idea.
That sounds completely reasonable.
Okay.
And also, I think that's a good idea, and I'm comfortable with it in the idea that, if we fund 3 years and we can see how implementation is with the expanded hours, how is it doing, where are the most calls coming in, what times, use that data to make it even better in the next years after that. So
that sounds like our first item that we're all in agreement on, and we can reduce the cost to $300,000. For 3 years.
But what about, but that doesn't include the crime prevention specialist, does it? No. I mean, because if it's $1 million for 4 years, it seems like it would take it down to like $750.
So how much more for the crime prevention specialist?
Crime prevention specialist would be about $90,000 a year.
Okay.
Can you describe a little bit more what that person would be doing and what their qualifications are?
And in part, the council could work to build this position, but the idea is that we're starting to build out programs in the community that work, whether it's working, and I would see this position working with our public safety committee, working on, I would put programs such as MIST, such as our CERT team, such as our juvenile diversion programs, working like as a team around sort of these community engagement and outreach, as opposed to under our current sort of patrol hierarchy right now, would be to try to bring some additional support to those non-sworn programs that we have in the community. If we ended up with a community ambassador program, that program would go out under this person as well. This was a position that actually was funded in a budget about 4 years ago from the previous council, with the idea that we are struggling to find sworn officers, right? But to be able to build some prevention and some outreach and better communication in the community from the police department to have a non-sworn position that's really out and engaging in the community around public safety issues in the neighborhoods and support the public safety committee in that way would be really helpful. But then we got the report and did pretty extensive analysis with the National Police Foundation and really needed to focus back in on evidence tech. And so we switched that position out for a full-time evidence tech at that time.
So would this person, because they're not a sworn officer, would they be like a social worker?
They could have a social work background, and that could be something that, the council is interested, in making sure that they have some background and training. I mean, they're certainly going to go through crisis intervention training, as most of our staff in the police department do. But I hadn't gotten as far as writing up exactly what the qualifications would be. I mean, I think of it a little bit more as a community engagement piece, but they certainly could come from a social work background.
Yeah, I would feel a lot more comfortable with kind of that view instead of like something that's crime prevention, which sounds a little bit more.
Yeah, I think you kind of just summarized what I was trying to get at, which is that I think instead of focusing on crime prevention, it should be like behavioral health intervention. I know it doesn't necessarily sound that different to some people, but I think to me it should focus on providing services to our community as opposed to keeping bad people from doing bad things. I think that's kind of an important framing as we're trying to grow these type of services.
I agree with that. And I also just wanted to add, I mean, the way kind of I interpreted it too would be almost like, and correct me if I'm wrong, like a administrative like kind of support person for these programs that are under the umbrella of the police department but are not doing active policing. And so, supporting MISS, supporting juvenile diversion, supporting these programs that we want to build and create to take away from, just the, police, here's a ticket, jail, whatever it might be, process that obviously we see doesn't work necessarily. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So what does that bring the total to then? So that's 750?
300,000 plus 270,000.
Yeah.
So 575? Math is fine.
So, and I'd also I think we should keep a running tally of how much money we're spending, so we have an idea as we keep going. So I know, is it 4.3 because we've already spent some money on other things, Karen, is that right?
Yeah, my suggestion to you is that you've set aside the $1 million for now, that you try to allocate priorities for $3 million of that tonight.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And
that one.
everybody agrees on setting aside the $1 million, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Great.
So then we're down to 3.3, and then we're going to subtract another 570,000.
575.
575. Why is it 75 and not 70?
She's better at it.
570.
No, I'm not the teacher.
You did good math.
She said, so it said it was 90,000.
570 is fine. I thought I heard you say 570. I can add it up for you, but.
Yeah, I was thinking 90,000 times 3, 9 times 3 is 27. So it's 270 plus 300,000.
70, not 575.
Cool. We might need that 5,000. Yeah. Okay, so then that brings us to 2.8 or 2 point, yeah.
I think 8 was the next one that was the most.
I know.
It seemed to be something that everybody.
Number 8.
Number 8.
Mayor, did we get all your priorities out?
No, not yet. It's okay.
I think I have everybody else's.
Doing some math over here.
All right, so it leaves us with 2,730,000. Yeah, I also had number 3, refund staff positions. I mean, as far as the police officer positions go, I feel like we're already understaffed. Like, they're not additional positions. I feel like it would be trying to bring us back up to normal staffing levels, where we have situations right now where we don't have enough officers to cover the city. If it was, additional officers that were beyond our bare minimum, then I could see not spending that money there. But I want to make sure that we have a threshold or a bare minimum of officers to cover the city. And I also think we should do 2 maintenance park workers. This city beautification is, one of our big goals. And I think it would go a long way to clean up the the weeds and other parts of the city that have started to deteriorate because of short staffing. And then, let's say number 4, the Arcata Economic Recovery Beautification Fund. I kind of want to increase it to 200,000, but I don't know. We can talk about that too. And then my last one was number 8 as well, the safe parking program. Let's talk about the safe parking program next. I feel like, to me, let me see.
Can I just ask a clarifying question?
Yeah.
So as far as these police officers go, this is above and beyond what's already, because we have positions that are unfilled because they're unfilled. Is this additional after we get up to the amount that it takes us to get fully staffed?
This would bring us back to staffing levels that we were pre-pandemic. So we froze 2 positions when we went into the pandemic last fiscal year. Those positions remained frozen this fiscal year to balance our budget in the beginning of the year.
But there's still other...
We do have additional vacancies above and beyond these that we are actively looking to recruit and fill right now.
So which is not, and those positions are not included in this?
No, those are budgeted for this year.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll continue to recruit for those.
Okay. Because I do agree with Mayor Watson. I was on a ride along a couple Saturday nights ago, and we were in a situation where, because of circumstances, all 3 officers were in one place for 2 hours, and I just think it's unacceptable on a Saturday night. So I'm not saying that we need, I just would like to fill the positions that we already have open. I don't necessarily think we need the additional ones. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, number 8, safe parking program. I feel like, how many vehicles, Karen, do you remember? You said that would accommodate?
It was built out at 30. The vast majority of the program, and if you look at your detailed sheet, is really staffing. So I think it's, we might be space-wise, we might have constraints, but really the issue is what seems safe. Most of the programs that we've looked at have been around 30 cars, trailers, trucks. If we felt like we could expand to 40 or 50 once it was going, that's really not a tremendous added cost. This program cost here does add 1 meal a day into that, but that cost is like $5 per meal. So to add that for another 10, cars, which could be 10 to 15 people, it really is a matter of safety for the environment of the safe parking area.
So along with that, does that also include like bathroom facilities, shower facilities, like
It would include some level, depending on the site that we chose and what was available to us. It certainly does have, at a minimum, would have porta potties, a portable water tank that people could draw portable water out of. We would get mobile showers into there. We would do laundry, off-site. We don't have mobile laundry yet in this area, but it's something that is being worked on. Try to have some level of electricity to each of the sites. So it does include that type of infrastructure being brought in.
Thank you.
With the 30 or approximately 30 car limit, is there like a person limit depending on like if every car that comes in has 4 family members in it, and as opposed to like every car that comes in has 1 person in it? That's a significantly different amount of people. Does that play into this at all or not really?
I think it would, since this would be the first time in my discussions with Arcata House Partnership, we would probably build it over the course of a month, right? We would bring in the first 10, or sort of invite the first 10 slots and then fill the next 10, and we would get a sense of, how that community is working together, how many numbers came in each vehicle, how much time it anticipates that they're going to spend there. It does include costs for a caseworker to also be on site, so the idea is that this would be temporary, right, sheltering for them, and that we would be moving them out into hopefully more permanent housing through coming into this program as well.
All right, so I'll be the unpopular person here and say that if we designate a safe parking space, is that something that we can direct the people that are parking at the community center across from Health Sport? Is that something that we can direct them to to kind of remove some of the?
We can. Similar to when we opened up parking lot shelters during the beginning of COVID, we invited people that were living in certain areas together to come into those sheltering areas. And, you know, the idea is that we could offer additional provisions, access to electricity, access to charging, access to food, access to bathrooms, access to security at night. You know, one of the lessons learned from sheltering during the pandemic is that we stood up the parking lot shelters really quickly, and the residents of those shelter areas would have really liked to have fencing to be secure at night. And so, you know, there are benefits to offer, and that would be an option certainly that we've used.
Thank you.
Yeah, I actually think that's a really excellent idea. I think it, as you said, would provide a better option potentially for folks that are parking and sleeping over by Health Sport, and we have gotten a lot of concern from Health Sport patrons, and so I think it could. I think you proposed a really wonderful idea. I don't think that makes you I mean, at least in my book, I think that's a really great idea, and I hadn't actually thought of that. So, just wanted to say I support that idea.
And do you feel like the entire $685,000 is necessary?
I
Seems
do.
like a lot.
It is a lot of money. That is budgeted for 1 year. I think if we don't spend all that in the first year, then you get an extra 1, 2, 3, 4 months of programming. I mean, I think we all have dreams right now about some really big sheltering and housing projects on the horizon, and we all hope that this is sort of a short-term gap of a year, but I think likely we're going to ultimately need at least 2 years of funding.
Yeah, I think with this dollar amount, I'd rather err on the side of over spending on that, not spending, but allocating, I think is the word I'm looking for.
All right, so it sounds like we're all in agreement on funding that $685,000. Yeah. So, yeah. Thanks for the phone calculator. So that is safe parking.
This is roughly the right amount of money.
So then that leaves us with $2,045,000.
Right. I think that we should talk about this whole climate change package, since it's something I think we're all kind of agreement on. So we've got several little items, but I'd like to cluster them together and maybe decide on an amount that we can dedicate to that. And again, with this, I would recommend that we also err on the side of over allocating.
Yeah. Yeah, to me, the next priority is funding staff positions. That's what I would like to talk about next.
Okay.
So when we have 548 down, but you mentioned wanting, well, I guess we have to discuss because there's maybe going to be disagreement on the police officers, and then you were talking about adding another maintenance worker. So how should we go about that?
How about we trade one police officer for one maintenance worker, and we compromise on the police officers and then add an extra maintenance worker?
I like it.
All right, thank you.
That works.
All right,
For me.
I love a compromise.
Done. And
Thanks.
I get to stop doing math after that, too.
So that's the same amount, that's what we're going to keep that same amount because we're trading out?
It'll be a little bit less, I think. Yeah. So it'll be 548. So I'm doing 540,000 minus, let me see, 104,000 for the officer.
2 of that 74.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm going to say it's 519,000.
You want to make it 520 for the sake of
Sure.
like that and the sake of
Let's see. So that leaves us 1,526,000. Go ahead.
Sorry, can you say that one more time?
Yes, it leaves us 1,526,000. This is number 3. Easy parking, suicide.
I just want to make sure that we don't forget Valley West too. I think it's really important to
Yeah, you're right.
throw Valley West, and
So, go ahead.
that's a small piece.
Well, I was just thinking, my idea for strategy was hammer out the real big ones, and then I'm assuming that we don't go over budget, and we have, some hundreds of thousands to play around with, and then, because I agree, that's my number one of the small things, so that's just kind of what I'm thinking.
Excellent.
So, I feel like we're in agreement on Valley West, and there's general agreement on, so can we just add number 1, Valley West, to the list?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Okay.
How much did you do Valley West for?
All of it.
Okay. So on that one, we'll be working up a specific scope of work to bring back to you.
Let's see. We did that. Yeah, we can do climate. So we have $1,300,000 left. So.
About beautification, did that one happen?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I'd like to throw that one in too.
Yeah, 'cause that's a cheap.
Okay. So number 4, beautification, unless anybody objects.
No, I don't object.
Okay.
That could be at 200?
Yeah, can we do 200 on that?
I'm okay with that.
I'm totally fine with that as long as we have enough money for climate and more shelter options.
Yeah.
Which I think we will.
And I just wanted to add too, I think that, a lot of these things too, we just need to have like the lens of climate change when doing them. And I think that's important too.
Yep.
Just to know that we all, like when implementing safe parking, for example, that we're doing it in a way that minimalizes waste and minimalizes waste. Yeah.
No, I think
but good for the environment, all of that.
that's a great point.
Let's also keep in mind that we also have presentations coming from Cooperation Humboldt about some housing options as well. So maybe that can kind of own a piece of this.
Let's see. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and talk about climate now? And I'll just let if anyone else wants to throw out some numbers, some ideas.
Well, just a rough addition of the things that were on the list. It's like 400, a little more than, like 400,000 is what I'm proposing.
What numbers are those?
15, and I wasn't thinking that we would necessarily commit to these particular projects, but if they are, but we commit the dollar amount and then let staff be a little more involved in figuring out what would be best. But I was looking at the 130 for number 15, and then with number 21, the all electric, that makes it 230, and then 23 and 24 is another 100,000 for 330. And then if you add in the 50 for 22, that's 380. So I was just bumping it to 400. And then with staff coming in with their priorities.
I feel like we could get away with not doing number 24. I think we're still a few years off from having, fire danger here. With our coastal climate, the high, moisture that's in our fuels and in the air in our forests. I don't know. I'm just looking for ways to save another $75,000.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
And that's what my degree is in, is wildfire management.
No.
So that's where I'm coming from. Okay, cool.
No, absolutely not. I think that's great, but I'm still going to urge us to spend a little bit more money on climate change.
No, that's fine. I was just saying specifically that one.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
I agree with you.
I wrote down 500 for climate on my sheet, so I don't know if anybody feels good about $500,000. I think it's a nice round number and gives us enough room to do these projects and then have a little bit more to work with as things come up, and staff can direct us with that.
I'm totally good with that. I think the one thing, and I don't really think any of these projects fall into this category, but just like my caution, I guess, when talking about climate is like to steer away from the personal responsibility and more focus on like we as a city taking responsibility. So like, yes, things like putting in hybrid charging stations are great, but like I'm really less concerned with individual citizens' personal responsibility and a lot more concerned with like how as a city are we spending our big bucks on climate related things. And so I don't really think any of the projects fall into that, but just as we're kind of putting a dollar amount without specific projects, I would just say like, let's remember the systemic and institutional issues and less so like, I don't know.
No, I 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
I was just having this conversation the other day, and no, I think it's really important to, and I think, yeah, I agree with you. I could start a whole, pontificate about something else, but I don't think it's necessary now. But, yeah.
I'm fine if we write it down at 500, and again, when we can go back and add everything up and then make tweaks. And I do want to acknowledge that we did have a lot of input from, people that were concerned in our city regarding climate change, and that is being reflected here on the dais, so thank you for your input on that.
Right. So with that, I have us at $608,500 left.
All right, we have you at 526.
Number 9.
Let's see, what are we missing? Because we have you at 5.
Yeah, I mean, my feelings on this, it would create about 20 beds. Well, this says 30. Is it for 30? I thought it was about 20, but there's meals for 30 people. My understanding was that it would create about 20 beds. It's kind of an uncertainty because the location is in the county. I don't know, $685,000 just for 20 beds. It just seems like a huge expense for a small ding, and it wouldn't really put a dent in our housing needs.
Maybe we can work with some of the other people like Cooperation Humboldt and True North and see how we can help them and not maybe take this whole 685, but some of it and kind of join forces with other people.
Well, this would be through Arcata House, I think.
Okay.
No, I mean, it's what you're saying makes sense. But I think this is...
Yeah, the program would be operated by Arcata House, and in fact, the primary spot would actually be on Boyd Road, their current shelter, and if that was not available, then we'd be looking at an alternative site either on city property or private property.
I would say I think that Mayor Watson brings up some good points, and I feel conflict in that we have some very immediate needs right now, and we're very aware of that we need to get people some type of shelter yesterday, but also that it isn't a long-term solution. It's another, I feel like we keep getting caught in this trap of how do we just fix the problem for right now? And so I do understand, I get what you're bringing up, and I think it is important that it's not that many beds and it is only temporary, and that maybe if we're trying to work to make permanent solutions around housing and houselessness, that this money could be better spent on something that's more long-term, or would lead to something more long-term, since this isn't long-term money. I don't know, because I don't think we lose either way, because both will provide some type of assistance. I'm feeling torn between what direction we need to go in at this moment that's best serves our community.
So we have 9, and then we also have 10.
Well, yeah, exactly.
So why don't we just, put that money towards number 10?
I also think that number 13, the water line extension for Boyd Road, is also going to be helpful to Arcata House's shelter that is on Boyd Road. And I think if you add 400,000 and 150,000, we're coming out,
But that's
instead
not...
of 9, we're still helping fund, Arcata House, whether they want to do a smaller scale low barrier shelter or add improvements to the shelter that already exists. And then also adding the water piece, I think, might even be more impactful than, funding 9.
Is the water piece, isn't it just for the businesses?
No, the water line would go to Arcata House Partnership, but they do have potable water right now. So water is provided to existing parcels that had development on Boyd Road through McKinleyville Community Services District. Ultimately, if we start annexing in any of those properties, and we've only done the first one, Eureka Ready Mix, we will need to transition all of them onto City of Arcata water system. We did get grant funding through COVID. They don't have sewer. None of the properties out there have sewer. So the first critical need was to bring sewer out to Arcata House Partnership because that's the limiting factor on build out on that property. McKinleyville, in essence, is not going to be able to expand water services, but they do have an existing service line there. I don't want to talk you out of it, but I think in terms of the difficulty of your conversation, we probably have time. That's not going to be the biggest barrier to development of additional beds out there.
Well, my idea kind of encompasses, I think, a little bit of all of yours, but I would like to put the bulk of the remaining money, whether it be the full 600 or less, but most of that towards some type of future low barrier, like shelter, like camping or whatever we might come up with. I know we're going to be presented possibly with opportunities like to what Meredith was saying, to work with their organizations, and it would be great if we had some money to bring to the table when that happened. So I think that it does sound really expensive for 20 people, and so maybe if we could just hold on to it and see if there was another program that could help more than that. I mean, and to the temporary part, like I totally get Councilmember Goldstein, what you were saying, and I support that. We definitely need long-term solutions, but I think that I just wish it weren't so expensive, because we do need short-term ones as well, because we've got people with nowhere to sleep. So it's like we really do need both. We need the short-term ones, and we have to work for the long-term ones, or we're just stuck in that short term. So
yeah. So Vice Mayor, I appreciate that. I do think that saving that would, for something that's long-term, that's not like a Band-Aid, but it's something that we can put towards something that can be like a more permanent kind of situation. I'm completely for that.
Yeah, I think that's a really excellent idea. I'd be absolutely for we could say the rest of the money, or like 500,000 or whatever. Whatever everyone's comfortable with, but I think that that's a great idea, just kind of holding it onto it, but earmarking it for something related to shelter. Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
I'm totally in favor of that.
So my only question then is, since that kind of, the previous discussion we were having was that we would be giving, 400 to Arcata House Partnership, and we're kind of not doing that. We're just saying we're going to set aside and wait and see. Are they counting on us for anything specifically? Is this going to cause a problem?
They're not, and I was just going to see, I don't see anyone from them on, so I can reach out and talk with them. This item came through, and we could get David Loya on Zoom here too. We recognize they are having a real funding crunch, and they approached us about the sale of a piece of property to try to help get out of that crunch, and that just seems completely counterproductive to the efforts that we're trying to make. We don't want to lose any housing units to try to get them out of a crunch, right? So, but David, is there additional light that you feel comfortable shedding on that situation?
I'd be happy to answer any questions. I think you really covered it.
Hold
it
on
really
just a
is
second, David. We can't hear you in here. Dylan?
Hear him in Dylan's office.
Oh, go ahead and talk, David.
Can you hear me now?
No, I think it's just, oh, there he comes. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. If you can't hear me now, I'll run into the council chamber.
We can hear you.
Nope, you're good, David.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Okay. I guess you covered it very well. You covered all the bases. I would just add to the conversation that the council did recently approve a $200,000 bridge loan, and because of the funds that bridge loan was attempting to access, they really haven't been able to take advantage of that $200,000. And so really we're just trying to find a couple of different options to help them with the, all of the additional work that they're really being called to do right now because of the, the crisis that we're seeing on the streets. So be happy to answer any questions you may have, but it's just additional funding for Arcata House to continue to do the work that they're doing now.
And in part, it's like they've just seen an explosion in need for food, so they've been providing a lot more food on a daily basis and monthly basis and trying to keep up with some of that. So, but we could certainly refine that number. If you have a set aside, we could meet with them and come back at your next meeting and have a refined number if there were some real critical things and have them make a very specific ask if there are things that would really help them.
I think that's fantastic. I'm good with that for sure.
I agree, because we rely on them and would not want to leave them hanging at any means, so.
Yeah, but to see something more, specific, I support that too, just to, know what we're funding and where there might be overlap with these other, projects that we're looking at funding as well, so.
Was there anything on here that the IT department wanted?
There were a couple of things. The big one probably is the fiber connection. We have a lot of expertise in the area right now doing fiber connection, and we have had a long-term goal of having a fiber connectivity between City Hall and our corporation yard. Normally those projects, and they're still very expensive. I think on here it's $185,000 or $180,000. But without those companies in town, the cost of that would have been quadruple that, right, to bring somebody immobilized from out of the area. So this was sort of a take advantage of what we have, and ARPA fund really does support sort of broadband infrastructure development in that. The other one that has just recently come up, well, it was a goal of previous councils, two actually past previous councils, was an app for the community to be able to better communicate with the city if they see something in the city that they would be interested in having fixed or worked on or repaired. There's an app that's called See-Click Fix that has developed over time. It was pretty cost prohibitive. It was cut from the budget a few times. This has probably been close to 5 years ago now. The app itself has come under the umbrella of one of our existing software companies that we already have annual contracts with. And I've actually just had 2 people in the last week come in and ask me if we have See-Click Fix, because they're used to it in the communities where they've been coming from, to identify areas of ADA access in the community that they would be interested in reporting to us.
So that's something the IT department wants? Is the See-Click Fix app?
I think it's just something that we've recognized would be a benefit to the community.
Okay.
It's not an existing deficiency in our IT.
Well, also, we have, if we're setting aside $1 million, we have like 3.3, correct? We could do a lot with that 300,000.
Well,
or no?
You do have already made
we're already
in your negotiations.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's just 3? Only
no, it's 2.3, but we used that to start with.
Okay,
yeah.
but I mean, for right now, we only have 3 to work with.
Right. Right now we have $608,000 left.
Okay, we show 526. So what are we counting that you're not, I guess?
I mean, I can show you.
Okay.
So it started there. And then this is minus $1 million. Wait, 2.73. How did I get 2.73?
How'd you get that one?
That's a good question. Oh, that was 500 and... Maybe I subtracted that twice. I think that was the 570,000.
Okay.
It was 570,000.
Yeah, I have 570.
For safe parking. No, it wasn't.
I have
safe parking.
685.
What was 570? Mobile innovation. Okay, that was. What number is missed? 6.
570 is missed.
Okay, this was missed. So here's your.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, good.
So this was 570. Should have been in here. Right there.
Okay, so that's your 570. But we're maybe just starting. You started from 3.3, not 3. I guess that's the difference, probably.
Okay.
I don't know, but we're not quite the same. Okay, let's go through them. 570.
Yeah. So that gave me 2.73.
Okay.
And 685 for safe parking.
685.
Gave me 2,045,000. 519 for number 3.
Yep. 518, 792. Yep.
217, 500 for
Yep.
number 1.
200.
200,000 for number 4.
Okay.
500,000 for planning.
That's what I have.
Okay.
So I think it's just that I'm starting at 3 million.
Okay.
Because you have the 285 basically.
So that's
for-
300,000.
Where's 300,000?
0.3 is 300,000, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we're off, we're at 526.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, because I still want it. Yeah, it's added up to there.
So let me just,
Yeah, double check.
if we just started at 3. Let's just pull me up a square, any square that's out of that world somewhere. Just give me a cell. Give me a blank cell. All right, equals 3 million minus 570,000 minus 685,000.
Why aren't we doing the 3.3?
Because you spent 285,000 on staff hazard pay.
Okay, but this is 4.4 originally, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, you
Okay.
maybe have about 100,000 left, so
Okay.
is that where, so maybe that's where it
Yeah,
is?
that's the thing. We are starting from 3. He's doing from more than 3.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying that we only have 3 to start with?
Well, that was
okay.
my, but you would maybe have like 3.1.
Okay, that's fine. So we can just do 3
Yeah.
then. That's fine. Okay, so after comparing numbers, our total is 408,500. I mean, I like the see-click fix idea. It's only 12 to 17,000. I just don't know if it would get used a lot.
I'm more inclined to just spend that money on the fiber broadband connectivity, especially if that's an option that you can take advantage of it.
Well, I'm totally agreeable with that, but then
and then the rest.
That would leave the rest for housing? Or, okay.
What do we get to leave for housing then?
So then that would be minus 180.
Because I think housing's...
Just leave that 408 for housing.
Yeah, I feel like it's such a big issue right now that we really need a good chunk of money to be able to deal with everything. And that's, happening.
Don't we have a little bit of money left over in our in our reserves from what we didn't spend.
When we close out this last fiscal year within the next couple of months, I do think that we will be adding money back into the reserve at that point. And the council could certainly have that discussion as well. We do also, I mean, we'll have some additional grant monies that we're teeing up around housing in the next few months. And then we obviously have the two really critical home key projects that we'll be bringing forward within, hopefully by the end of October, those requests for proposals will be out.
Right.
Yeah, I would like to spend some money on infrastructure as far as IT. I think that's important.
Yeah, I thought that, I don't know, wasn't there like another $1 million or something? And then we spent some of it in negotiations.
When we finalize out that fiscal year, then I think we'll have additional funds.
So can we, I'd be interested in spending some of those additional funds on the fiber broadband connectivity.
Okay.
I would too, because I just think it will, even though we don't need it right this second, we have the people in town to do it, and we will eventually have to do it, so this will save us a lot of money. So maybe we can find that, and maybe we can find some of these other things that we wanted too in that.
Yeah.
And again, thank you to the past council for leaving us with money to spend.
For real. I was going to say, and this is like not a suggestion I'm at all tied to, because I do know beautification is pretty important to folks. So I'm not at all like saying we have to go with this, but because we're funding more positions for maintenance, I'm wondering if that will kind of just naturally lead to, I mean, it's not improvements, but we've been talking about how there's a lot of overgrown weeds and things like that. So maybe we need like a little bit less money for beautification if we just need to find a little bit more money in what we're talking about. But again, I'm not super tied to that. Just throwing it out there.
Well, I think that if we can, like the city manager was saying, if we can find some extra money in the budget to allocate to the fiber optics, then we're good.
I'm totally good with that.
Yes.
Were we going to have public comment?
We are. We're about to.
Great, thank you.
Cool. So yeah, I think it sounds like we're all agreed on everything so far. So we can now take public comment, and please go ahead.
Thank you, Brett. This time it looks like we have one attendee that would like to comment. Pat, if you could go ahead, please. You'll have 2 minutes.
Yeah, thanks for this opportunity. I understand it's really challenging when there are so many important needs to allocate these funds. And but I want to say that there is a close connection between climate change prevention and pandemic relief. As you likely know, research has been showing that in addition to causing severe health problems on its own, particulate matter air pollution is in itself a major factor in higher mortality for people infected with COVID. Wildfire smoke from climate-related fires, as we're seeing now, is a source of that particulate matter, as is air pollution from refineries and the drill rigs that produce the fossil fuels that we need to move away from. Also, moving away from fossil fuels is especially hard for those most economically challenged. And this is not an area of simple personal responsibility. I believe that the city can use these funds to ease that challenge for low-income households to move away from natural gas heating and gasoline-powered cars, steps likely to be proposed in the Regional Climate Action Plan when it's released soon. This will also help lower-income Arcata residents who otherwise will be stuck paying for the stranded assets of fossil fuels as the rest of California moves on in the near future to EVs and heat pumps. In doing this, Arcata could also help reduce the pain of the coming non-microbial pandemic of climate disaster, but only if we choose to do that. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, we have screening Nancy, and after that will be Haley. Okay, Nancy, looks like you're on an old version of Zoom, so let's try this. Okay, you're on mute, Nancy.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now.
Yeah,
So I really want to express what my appreciation for your attempts to really kind of deal with so many issues. I really do come from a concern about climate change perspective. So I'm not, I really am finally unclear what happened. I know in the beginning, several council members said, well, we really should set some money aside for climate change policies and actions. And I'm not sure where that is right now. So maybe you can clarify that at some point. I know that shortly there'll be a climate action plan released, and it'll have different ideas about what can be done. And I do think that there might be a problem in implementing them because they will be expensive. So I understand that there's 1 million. I kind of got that there was 1 million kind of set aside. And I hope that the council will really kind of use that for things that will help with the greenhouse gas emissions. One of the ideas that I have heard about is just kind of doing something with the buses so that people who have difficulty accessing buses because of expense or because of the schedules, that the schedules are better, there are more buses, more maybe even free buses for people to get to work or whatever. I just returned from Germany and was so impressed with how many bike lanes there are and getting people out of their cars. I'm sure that the climate action plan will have a whole bunch of other ideas. And I really hope you think about saving some of this money to use for implementing those things.
Thank you, Nancy.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next, we have Haley. Rename Haley. Go ahead, and then after that, we'll have a call-in.
Yes, I am just speaking on behalf of Rocker as well as 350 Humboldt. And I acknowledge that we are facing so many intersecting crises at this time, and there's a lot to consider with these funds. But I just want to acknowledge that we are really experiencing the impacts from the climate crisis at this very moment, such as the wildfire smoke. We are experiencing fire danger right now, and we will continue to face more severe impacts from climate change, like these wildfires and sea level rise, and they'll just continue to escalate as we keep putting greenhouse gases into the atmosphere from our vehicles and houses. And I just want to acknowledge that the city must take every action to ensure that these funds are spent in ways that mitigate the climate crisis. And so within the framework of the ARPA funding, we support the Valley West neighborhood support for creating local destination and different active transport and the City Hall electric heating and ventilation. But after hearing the 100,000 on the climate that is allocated, it's not going to cut it. We request at the time that the $1 million that is set aside will be prioritized for equity-focused decarbonization efforts. Again, that all the $1 million that is left and set aside. And we just also just these funds can be spent on the climate action plan once it comes out, to ensure that these are actually funded projects or programs to help the city progress towards its cap targets. Or it could mean establishing other decarbonization efforts, such as no interest loans for income housing homeowners to electrify their homes, electric vehicles, chargers, e-bikes for incentives, among others. But thank you for considering our request and for listening.
Thank you. Next, we have a phone caller, and then after that will be Oscar. Go ahead, please, caller. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Hi, Council. My name's Ellie Noah. I'm a citizen of Arcata, and I wanted to just voice my support for using as much money as possible for long-term housing solutions. I do think that so much of all of the issues that we're trying to address in our community are tied to lack of housing, accessible and affordable housing in our community. And so I really think that if we invest in support for people to get the housing that I think should really be a right in our community, that's really how I'd like to see this money be spent. While I, of course, want to see climate change addressed, I don't think that there's much we can do as a city that's going to impact such a national problem. And there's so many solutions that wouldn't cost money. We can put taxes on carbon emissions. We can tax big businesses. There's so much we can do without spending money to address climate change. And there's so much that we could put this money toward to support housing in our community and people in our community, which would in turn support our economy, would support the mental health of our community, the safety of our community. All of that is tied to the baseline of basic needs being met for every citizen in Arcata. Yeah, so I hope that you consider that, and thank you.
Thank you. Next is Oscar. Go ahead, please, Oscar.
Hello, Council. This is Oscar. I want to first say a big thank you for approving our recommended budget as Director of CUNA, Community United of North Arcata. Very appreciative of your guys' recognition of Valley West and its importance. And secondly, I want to stand in solidarity with the individuals who have spoken prior to me on this specific comment section, addressing the need for immediate action for the climate crisis and an allocation of funds to develop and implement programs and make sure that people's work is aligned with, the city's vision. I also am a big fan of the carbon tax, also known as the Pagovian tax. I think as a community that predominantly is reliant on that, that it would be wise to consider a model that doesn't pull from these funds, essentially, if that's not what you guys are deciding to do, but alternative solutions that can be implemented and keep the community accountable. And so building that culture. And so I just want to stand in solidarity with the previous speakers on that matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on the attendees that would like to speak on this item? No more public comment, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, do we have any other comments or questions from the council?
I just want to thank everybody that took the time to comment. And we all realize that climate change is here and it's a crisis, and it's something that we all take very seriously. And it's just, I just would like to leave you all with this. It is incumbent on all of us personally to make decisions that will contribute positively to the climate. So, we can do what we can as a council, but we all bear a personal responsibility as well.
thank you. I definitely agree with everything you said. All right, unless we have anything else, before we move on with the rest of our agenda, we're going to take a short break. Welcome back to the Arcata City Council meeting. Next on our agenda is new business item A, appoint 2 new members to the Economic Development Committee for terms expiring September 30th, 2022 or 2023. If we have any discussion by the council right now, or if someone would just like to make a motion.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Because don't they both have to be the 2023 terms because they're both residents?
No,
They could be either? Okay.
area includes residents.
Okay. Okay. Just wondering.
Yeah, I felt fine with both candidates. Okay.
Okay, then I'll make a motion that we add Monique Molina and Hamnatha Panta to the Economic Development Committee for term ending September 30th in 2023.
I'll second that, and thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely. So we have a motion, and do we have any members of the public that would like to comment on this item?
Looking for public comment on this item? Seeing none.
All right. We have a motion and a second. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Motion carries. Next, we'll move on to new business item B, receive an update from Cooperation Humboldt on recent community outreach efforts in the Valley West neighborhood.
All right, so we'll just turn it straight over. Oscar or Sabrina, which one of you will start?
I'm going to start and just lay out the framework. Hello, everyone. This is Oscar Movillon with Cooperation Humboldt. Thank you for having us. We are here to share our outreach program that we have actually just been approved recently through the Board of Supervisors of the county. This program covers all of Humboldt County. We are mostly going to focus on our outreach. We're only going to focus on our outreach in Valley West, where that is taking a lot of our attention because of the concentration of individuals experiencing homelessness. And we have met a great array of people from all different walks of life. We've been able to learn a lot in the process. We are absorbing a lot of this information, a lot of this lived experience. And we are not going to these areas with the intent of this is what we're going to do for you specifically. We're going into those areas as sponges, absorbing as much as we can, building relationships, building trust, and being part of their community to really understand it and to be able to best respond to it. I'm going to give Sabrina a chance to introduce herself and to talk about, her reflection on the program, and then we'll get deeper into questions from council. And I think using the questions and the entrance from council and us responding to these questions will be the best way to organically carry on in conversation and dialogue. Sabrina.
Hi, I'm Sabrina, and I'm a street outreach worker. So our program takes an approach that empowers individuals who are being serviced to be a part of the program and come onto the team as a street outreach worker. And so we're connecting with clients right now to develop relationships and conduct empathy interviews where we can just create a space where people can be heard, share their story, and express what their needs are and what the gaps in current services are. We're recognizing that a lot of the individuals we're connecting with, they want to be a part of the solution. They're very much interested in supporting our efforts and participating in this project, in this program, and they recognize that they're stigmatized by the majority of their community, and they are affected by that. And they do want to be a part of these solutions that we're trying to implement. And so we're exploring ways to engage them and include them in these processes and bring them on as peer community health workers so that they can support their community as well.
I do want to just say that the three things that we're doing in this program is we're doing case management, We are doing, we're collecting HMIS forms to document these individuals and enter them into the continuum of care system. And we're also providing winter gear for the coming harsh weather that is going to come, and finding ways to do this with people who we've built relationships with is really important to us, so that we understand exactly what the supplies we're going to get, and having a high liquidation of those supplies, so that we're not just sitting on them, and that we have a plan and a system in place to help distribute them. A big major component of all of that is we have set aside funding for peer community health workers, which is actually bringing those individuals experiencing homelessness onto that team to help implement and even design some of the programs that we're going to carry out throughout the entirety of this outreach project. So now we're going to open it up for public comment to council members, and we'll continue dialogue from there.
So, yeah, I mean, we can do that. Normally we, receive a presentation and it comes back to the council for deliberation and comments, and then we'll take public comment. But we can adapt to your format. So do we have any questions or comments from the council?
I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to say thank you both to Oscar and Sabrina for, giving us an update on what you guys are doing, because the work that you're doing in Valley West and all over the county is super amazing and important. And it's, it's great to see a grassroots organized group like this really take the initiative to go out into our community and support, our neighbors. And so just thank you guys so much for the work that you're doing.
Yeah, I completely agree. Thank you so much for agreeing to be here and providing us with this education and information. I really was interested in having you all come tonight, because I think we really need to hear I guess hear from the folks living on the streets as we can in this weird Zoom world. And I think that was really because we've been getting a lot of angry emails, and I understand people's frustrations, I really do, but I think when I get emails that use, derogatory language towards houseless folks, and really, dehumanize them down to a problem instead of people that are struggling, I really see a need for us to take a look at a different narrative. And so I would just ask if you could share more of kind of the detail, or whatever you're comfortable with, whatever is within your confidentiality with the folks you're talking with, some of the details of the conversations you're having. You said they're really interested in being part of the solution. They're interested in all sorts of really creative and wonderful things. I'd just love to hear more of some of those details if you're comfortable sharing them.
I can share that one thing we really learned is that there is a community back there, and the individuals, as we explore housing solutions, we need to take into consideration that these individuals are living in community and they're supporting one another. And there are certain folks that advocate for the group. And so we do need to include them into these housing solutions that we explore as a community. They are a part of the community. They're living in community with each other, and they're open to living in community, but we need to reciprocate that support and all work together. And as we, like I said, as we explore housing solutions, we need to take into consideration that these folks would do best transitioning as a group, as a community, collectively.
I want to echo that that importance of community and not disrupting community. Within this community, there are support networks, there are trusted relationships, there's protection, there is security. And when you are out there with very little supplies and resources, that is your backbone. That's what keeps you going. A really good example of this would be Devil's Playground in Eureka getting completely wiped out and completely dismantled. There was a lot of problems there. There was a lot of things that needed to be worked out, but breaking up that community had a lot of residual negative effects on the community and that population specifically moving forward because of the disruption, because of it being, not organized. And we are very transparent with the population here. Camping here is illegal and it won't last long. How can we talk about what's coming next, future steps, being part of the solution, being heard, and making sure that those testimonial experiences that we get and those anecdotes that we learn from through people's lived experience don't just go dormant. We want to make sure that we surface them and we take full account into the weight that the magnitude that those relationships and those experiences have. We are always questioning credibility, but when we see consistency, I think that really lets us know that we are moving in the right direction in terms of starting fresh, starting with a new model that is allowing us to focus relationships and then secondarily get to fill out the HMIS forms or do that. Like, our focus is to understand. And what we are sharing right now is we cannot just disrupt this area for the sake of the overall community with this current community there. We have to consider their livelihoods, the veterans that are out there, the elderly individuals who are out there, women, couples with children. There's a lot of things to consider, and it's really in depth. So I think surfacing these things, I hope influences council to understand that it's not one category of people. These are people from all different walks of life, knowing different languages, with different ambitions and life goals. And I think that's important. And I think that we are still learning a lot.
Any other questions or comments from the council?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to comment. I just continue to be impressed by Cooperation Humboldt as an organization and the way that they're run and the way that they intentionally move forward with things is very impressive. So I just wanted to thank them for what they're doing, and we're really blessed to have them in our community to turn to. So thank you.
Do we have any members of the public that would like to comment on this agenda item?
Any from public comment on this item? Seeing none.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the presentation. I definitely agree of, only hearing positive things in the community about Cooperation Humboldt. Really got off to a successful start, kind of early on and just doing tons of work. Incredibly grateful and really looking forward to continue to working with Cooperation Humboldt. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks again, council. Thanks for doing all the hard work you guys do.
All right, next we have new business item C, receive a presentation from Crystal Perez, Juvenile Diversion Counselor on the city's Juvenile Diversion Program.
Thank you guys for having me and inviting me to do a presentation. I'm going to do a share screen really quickly. So I believed the chief was going to speak, but he might be busy right now. So my name is Crystal Perez. I've been working for the Arcata Police Department in the city of Arcata as a juvenile diversion counselor for about 4 years now. And I have a background in psychology. I received a master's in developmental psychopathology from Humboldt State. I worked in juvenile hall for 7 years as a skills coach and a corrections officer. I was really excited when this opportunity to work for the Arcata Police Department in the city of Arcata opened up, because working in a juvenile hall, I saw the recidivism. I saw how kids would go into the juvenile justice system, and it would be a revolving door. And I saw an advertisement in the newspaper saying, keep kids in school and out of the juvenile justice So I was really excited about this program opening up. Our primary objectives for the juvenile diversion program is to use evidence-based restorative practices to reduce juvenile involvement in the juvenile justice system, decrease truancy, suspension, expulsion, provide local at-risk youth and parents a support system, and improve relationships between families, youth, community, and organizations. This quick picture. It might be, I think this is when the chief first started, but here's a part of our team. And on the far left is Leah Valdivia. She is also a juvenile diversion counselor. And at the time, we have one of our SROs leaving, so that was what that picture was taken for. So just to tell the city and others about the juvenile diversion process, I think that there's a lot of information about law enforcement in schools and the school to prison pipeline, and diversion is created for the exact opposite reason. The officers in our department do not want kids involved in the juvenile justice system. This is primarily intervention and prevention. So we get referrals from school, law enforcement, and also community agencies such as Department of Health and Human Services through that. And I'll go through these a little bit more in detail as the presentation goes on. But the youth and family will get an assessment, and then we have an assessment with just the child, and then we create a contract, and then we do case management, support, and interventions. So the first part of our program, like I said, was law enforcement citation or referral process. The citation is not actually a citation. It's a referral to juvenile probation, juvenile diversion. And so other people who can make referrals are school administrators, the school attendance review board, the sheriff's office, Humboldt State Police, and yeah. So these referrals are for first-time offenders, for repeated acts of misconduct or misdemeanors, and so this might be selling drugs on campus. This might be truancy or assault and battery on campus or in the community. Of course, we recognize that a risk of a program within the police department is something called widening the net. You're capturing more kids in the system than you would want. Our program is very aware of this risk. We take every measure possible. We use every intervention we can with the youth that we work with, so that is not happening in our program. If a kid has a substance use disorder, we refer out. If they have mental health services they need, we also refer out. If they have houselessness or maybe food insecurity, we use our community resources to get the youth and family the services they need. I mentioned it again, the second stage in the process is the family and youth assessment. So we'll have the family and youth come in together and we ask, who are your friends? How are you doing in school? Are you suffering from mental health, depression, anxiety, hearing voices? What is your substance use like? Is there a history of trauma, alcoholism, substance use? What do you do for fun? Are you currently employed? So this is the primary assessment, and we use the same assessment that probation, the Humboldt County Probation uses to assess criminogenic needs, as well as what are the risk factors and protective factors for this youth. And then we'll do this assessment one-on-one with the youth, because sometimes youth aren't comfortable disclosing certain things in front of their parents. So we'll have them do a one-on-one interview with a diversion counselor. After we do our interviews, the next step is our contract and case plan. And everybody's contract who comes to juvenile diversion, everybody's case plan looks different. So if a youth has substance use or abuse issues, we will give them brief interventions, maybe send them to teen court. Community service is one of my kind of favorite things that varies quite a bit. if we have a fifth grader that did stole a bottle of alcohol on from Safeway, maybe we'll say, okay, well, you still have to do community service, like pay Safeway back, and your community service, it looks like you're failing math, so your community service is going to look like spending 3 hours with your math teacher during lunchtime and getting up to speed. If it's a 17-year-old that's just kind of floating, and we might say, okay, like your community service, we're going to send you to the TAY, the Transitional Age Youth Services, to get some job coaching and skill development, if that's one of their goals. We also have accountability counseling. Again, we can do child, youth, and family services referrals or mental health referrals. We also do parent project and loving solutions classes. So those are classes for parents of strong-willed youth between the ages of 5 and 10 is loving solutions, and then 10 to adult is our parent project. And we also do mediations and restorative circles on campus for the high schools and junior highs. So again, our community partners that we do refer to, Family Resource Centers, a huge help to us out here, CYFS, Child Welfare, the Critical Incident Team, Two Feathers, United Indian Health for our Native youth, Evolve Youth Services for our foster and adopted youth. We coordinate with local businesses and other agencies, essentially all the schools in the Northern Humboldt Union School District. One of my favorite parts of the program that we have is our Loving Solutions and Parent Project. So right here I have on the left-hand side the curriculum for the Parent Project. These are on chapter, so it's preparing to address problematic behavior, and we talk to parents about what makes a strong-willed kid strong-willed, and that's a typical child you might say you're grounded for a week and they're going to go in their room and do what you ask them. A strong-willed child's just going to say, F you and run out the door. So, and then from there we talk about what supervision looks like in school, and each week we have a different subject matter to dealing with these certain behaviors that strong-willed teens are more likely to engage in. And then on the right-hand side, we have Unit 1, just a brief overview about strong-willed children. Really just need open displays of love and affection more than more than the typical child probably. When you least feel like giving a child love and affection, that's when they need it the most. We also talk to the parents about the difference between influence and control, that you can't control your kids, but you still have a lot of influence. And that is paired with positive and negative consequences. Positive strokes is, again, just rewarding your child every time they do something right. And then steps of success are at the end of every chapter of the weekly class. We have homework, and it's called Steps of Success. So for Unit 1, their homework will be, practice an open display of love and affection, catch your kid doing something good and tell them thank you or good job. And then the next week they'll come in and they'll report, like, how did that go? How did your child respond to it? And they'll notice, like, reintegrating those things into their life really have start a small shift, which is nice. So measuring success. So since its inception, since October 2016, Diversion has managed 331 cases, approximately 100 cases a year. We've served a lot more than that, but a lot of those cases are informal. So this year was a little bit different due to COVID, and we were still able to provide services for 36 juveniles, 17 female, 19 males, and the main cases were on truancy with school, and then we also helped because our referrals were low. We were actually able to partner with Arcata Sunrise Rotary and give internships for and job coaching for 9 adults who were either homeless foster youth or at risk in another way. And then we had eight referrals for in-home conflict, and then the rest of the statistics are down there. But yeah, we have a really high success rate, and success is either increase of school attendance, completion of counseling, or absence of further offenses. Only 8% of the youth who have entered our program failed their diversion agreement or didn't qualify for diversion services due to the gravity of their offenses. So that means if the gravity of their offenses, if it was an extremely violent crime, they wouldn't necessarily qualify to come to diversion. Failure to complete is measured not by not completing community service, continuing to violate the law, no school improvement, or school attendance, and then failure to show up to diversion meetings. But I really think that changes if we look back at the diversion process, and this, when we get all the way to the end after case management and we say completion, incomplete, reoffend. I think typical diversion programs say, if you reoffend or you don't complete your program, we're going to refer you to probation. And I think that's where Arcata's program changes. We realize that kids are changing and they go through ups and downs. And so we continue to give services and support. And we've had referrals from probation even saying this kid is technically on probation, but they don't, we can't provide the mentorship or some of the soft handovers to other agencies that they need the follow-up. And so we'll team up and continue serving this population that's at risk. And then here is my contact information for anyone who is interested in it, and also Leah Valdivia, who is my co-counselor in this.
Thank you, Crystal. Do you want to turn it back to the council for questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Do we have any questions or comments from the council?
I just want to say thank you for your presentation. I think this is an awesome program, and it was really great getting to learn more about it. I certainly did not know all of the details, and I'm really excited by everything that you shared. I just had kind of out of curiosity, just had a couple questions. I was wondering if you, at any point in the process, look at a child's ACEs or ACE score, and then also how often, when you're working with a child with behavioral problems or whatever reason they're coming to you, do you end up finding that it's at some point related to some type of abuse at home, and what happens at that point if you discover there's some sort of an abusive environment that they're living in?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we absolutely look at ACE scores. We have the self-report for the teens, and we have the parent report for family history. We also make sure to pair it with a resiliency score. So it's if you're going to say you're higher at risk for certain adverse childhood experiences, we also have to point out there's other things that make you more resilient, whether it's a mentor, grades, or a hobby. So yeah, we definitely, and I think you answered your own question when you ask about yeah, those adverse childhood experiences absolutely do have a correlation to a youth being strong-willed or engaging in certain behaviors. 100%, and there are a multitude of ways that we can address it depending on the kid's age. We report it to law enforcement or CWS, or I've done a lot of tours to the Youth Services Bureau, the shelter for kids, and helping them transition into foster care as well.
Thank you so much.
I just want to say thank you for being here. And as you know, as a teacher, I love this program and just think that it is enormously beneficial to the youth in our community, and also just, to make sure we're all, knowing what you guys are doing and just seeing how, restorative practices can transfer to other parts of our community and parts of our society and people that we work with all the time. So just thank you for keeping us updated.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate the opportunity. I love this program, and so if any of the council members or any of the community members have more questions, you can feel free to call me about the services. I want to be, respectful of your guys' time, but there's so much that goes into this program that I couldn't even touch on.
Great. Do we have any members of the public that would like to comment on this item?
We do. We have Kimberly. Go ahead, Kimberly.
Hi, I just wanted to thank Crystal for all the good work that she does for our adolescent youth in our community.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers for this item? No further public comment.
All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Perez. Really appreciate your time this evening. And next we'll move on to new business item D, adopt resolution number 212-12, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Arcata updating the city's emergency operations plan, and introduce ordinance number 1549, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Arcata amending the Arcata Municipal Code, Title II, Chapter 6, Emergency Organization and Functions. May we please have a staff report?
Nancy, do you want to go ahead, or?
Yeah, I've got to ask, are the logistics difficult? Is it hard for you to hear?
No,
in the
it's
council
perfect.
Chambers? Would it be easier for you to do it?
Nope, we can see you and hear you fine. You go for it.
Okay. Well, I can go quickly and then Karen can add. Before you tonight are two related items. In January of this year, the council received a presentation on the updated revised emergency operations plan, and that the staff report to that presentation provides quite a bit of detail. So I did provide you a link with that. In the course of making the revisions, the city working group identified a number of revisions that needed to be made to the municipal code chapter on emergency organization, functions and management. And so that the introduction of the ordinance revisions are before you tonight as well. So just in the interest of brevity, I will keep my staff report short, and you're welcome to ask me to go into depth, or Karen for that matter. The staff report does cover the revisions to the municipal code. And I want to also make a couple of corrections to the resolution that was attached in your packet. That is a resolution that actually does have a number. So I'm sure the city clerk would know to drop that in. That is a resolution 2012-12. And then, and then I see that the blank has been filled. So just that resolution. So that resolution number. The item then before you is two actions. One is to adopt resolution number 212-12, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Arcata updating the city's emergency operations plan. And two, introduce ordinance 1549, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Arcata amending the Arcata Municipal Code, Title II, Chapter 6, Emergency Organization and Functions. Waive reading of the text and consent to read by title only. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Did you have anything to add? All right. Do we have any questions or comments from the council? Do we have any members of the public that would like to comment on this agenda item?
There's no public comment on this item.
All right. Do we have a council member that would like to make a motion?
I will read all the things. Okay, I move that we adopt resolution number 212-12, a resolution of the Arcata City, of the City Council of the City of Arcata, updating the city's emergency operations plan, and introduce ordinance number 1549, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Arcata, amending the Arcata Municipal Code Title 2, Chapter 6, Emergency Organization and Functions, waive reading of the text, and consent to read by title only.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Motion carries. Next, we have new business item E, consider council member assignments to regional boards, commissions, committees, and as liaisons to fill current vacancies.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. So this item is before you tonight because we did have vacancies that resulted from when Mayor Pereira at the time stepped down to take the position of the Public Health Director, with the addition of Councilmember Matthews, who wanted to revisit that list to see who wanted to take those spaces, and being able to have a full council. And specifically, Councilmember Pereira was serving as the primary liaison for Humboldt Waste Management Authority. And then she had Humboldt Waste Management, and then she was also primary for the Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District Water Quality Task Force for Meredith's benefit that tends to meet once every 3 years. So it's not a real heavy lift there. And then there is also right now a vacancy on the Arcata Chamber of Commerce that was unable to be filled at your last setting of liaison meetings in December. So that is also a vacancy. So I'll turn it to you to have that discussion.
I am completely fine with all of that. I've actually been attending chamber meetings for a while now. I would love the opportunity to, change from board member to liaison. I am fine with these other appointments. I would also like the council to consider that I can be a liaison to Cooperation Humboldt. I think that the work that they're doing is very important. I think that as we have seen through presentations that it's a really good, thing for us to be involved in. I'm a core member of Cooperation Humboldt. I already have relationships with them, and I would love to continue my work as a liaison with them, if that works.
I think that's a really wonderful idea, and I'd like to ask if that could become like a permanent liaison position that we add to our roster, our list, that even,
Yeah, in perpetuity.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, exactly.
My question is, I was definitely thinking that we need a liaison for CUNA because that's specific to our area. So I don't know if, if it would be like a whole Cooperation Humboldt liaison, or do we want it specifically to CUNA, or how do we see that?
I would just add, we already have a lot of meetings to go to, so I know it's, it makes sense in some ways to add some of these liaisonships, but just keep that in mind that, I just don't want anybody to become overcommitted, with the ebb and flow of our meetings.
Yeah, I think that with the HWMA, the chamber meets only once a month. And so I don't think it would be like any additional onus or hardship to also work with Cooperation Humboldt. I don't know specifically if it's CUNA or Cooperation Humboldt as a whole. I'd prefer to be involved, with the whole program. But I'm also willing to, kind of hone that in to just CUNA. But either way, I'm good.
Yeah, if you want to do it, I think that's great.
I was going to say, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
I was just going to say, I guess the only other question, I mean, of course, you're already a core member, so you are specifically already involved, but I guess we have to make sure they want us to have a liaison, right?
They do.
They do. Okay, great.
Really do.
That's perfect. I was like, well, obviously they want you because you're already involved, but to make sure that that's a relationship that they also want us.
Super happy about it. So
perfect.
So I think we need a motion to appoint.
You will need a motion, and if you want to add Cooperation Humboldt, you can do it multiple motions, or you can put it all in one. And if you want to add an alternate for Cooperation Humboldt, you also would have the opportunity to do that as well.
I'd be down to be the alternate.
You got it.
You'd be lucky to have you as an alternate.
All right, so you want to do a separate motion to add Cooperation Humboldt to the list of committee assignments. So I'll entertain that motion. Well, how about, do we have any members that want to make public comment?
Being for public comment on this item, we do have a member of the public. Go ahead, Oscar.
I just would like to clarify that we would very much appreciate and just admire any liaison. And thank you so much, Meredith, for stepping in. And just wanted to make that clear. We are very happy to work alongside and with the city.
Thank you.
So I'll make a motion that we add Cooperation Humboldt to our list of council liaisons.
A second?
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
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 So now, do we need to list off the appointments again?
I think it would just be, you would make a motion to appoint Councilmember Meredith Matthews to be the primary for Humboldt Waste Management Authority, JPA, and for the Humboldt Bay Water District Water Quality Task Force, and then to be the primary for Cooperation Humboldt, and Councilmember Goldstein to be the alternate for Cooperation Humboldt.
Oh.
And to add, Councilmember Meredith to the Chamber of Commerce liaison.
So moved.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
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 All right. Now we are at oral and written communications. This time period is provided for people to address the council or submit written communications on matters not on the agenda. At the conclusion of all oral and written communications, the council may respond to statements. Any request that requires council action will be set by the council for a future agenda or referred to staff. Speakers addressing the council may be limited to 3 minutes with a maximum of 5 minutes, and a time limit on the overall length of oral communications may be imposed. Do we have any members of the public that would like to comment at this time?
Seeing no public comment at this time.
All right. Next, we have council and staff reports. Do we have any staff reports this evening?
No reports tonight.
All right. Any reports from the council?
I just wanted to share one thing. I'm the liaison to Humboldt Transit Authority, and we had our meeting today, but I also was invited to a meeting afterwards with representatives from, I believe they represent Amtrak or yes. Sorry. It's the end of a very long meeting. Anyway, we were meeting to have a discussion basically about the safety and usability of the Arcata Transit Center. And they just were bringing up that they were just feeling like there was not the best presentation for their clientele, I will say. And so I just wanted to share that we started having that conversation of ways that we could, better support. They asked if we could have some sort of, security or community member that's kind of keeping an eye on things, making sure folks who are, standing out there at 7 a.m. alone with their bags feel safe. And so that was we just had an initial meeting. We'll be meeting again, I think, in about 3 weeks. So I'm happy to share out again. But just wanted to let you know that we started having those talks. And I actually meant to bring this up when we were talking about the ARPA funds, just because we were talking about community safety. And so I meant to bring it up and got too wrapped up in our other conversations. But I did want to just share out that I was part of that meeting today. And yeah, and that's a conversation that's happening, and they're looking for some support from the city.
Thank you.
a community ambassador would be great for that position. I'm just going to throw that out there. As a liaison to Arcata Main Street, I just wanted to let everybody know that we do have a lot of new board members and a lot of really cool energy. So that's very exciting. And Alex Stillman's been kind of guiding all of the new board members and energy with her experience. So the program's definitely rebuilding. So that's good to see. And there's going to be a green and gold theme throughout town starting in September 10th through the 30th. So we'll primarily be focused on the downtown businesses, but everyone in the community is encouraged to decorate or support the students coming back. And then I just wanted to thank staff for how lovely the plaza looks. I noticed that walking to the meeting today, and actually a business owner from the plaza reached out to me yesterday to offer thanks for that. So it's been noticed right away by people. So thank you. It looks great.
Great. Next, we have dates of future meetings. So we don't need to worry about A. So I guess your report your comments on the community ambassador. So did that get funded?
Not this time,
okay.
But I think there might be other opportunities. Yeah. It just seemed like it could be molded in with other things.
Right. Set a date for a special meeting to take a walking tour of the Arcata Gateway Plan area. Do we want to do that this evening?
We can. We did have results of your doodle poll. For some reason, they're not right in front of me.
That's okay.
But we can probably pull them up here quickly. So the suggested dates would be on the 21st of September is one that actually all of you indicated on the doodle poll that you could make. We do have TSC that night or that day at 4 o'clock. So my suggestion would be that, we start at 5:30. We also have Wetlands and Creeks meeting. Other dates that were good for most of you would be around the 29th or 30th, but they were not good for Councilmember Goldstein.
September 21st work for everybody?
Yeah. Great.
All right. At what time? 5:30?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're trying to keep the daylight, but let you guys finish your work days and.
All right. With that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.